Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Oh, what a glorious day. What an amazing, glorious day. And the opportunity that I have to introduce to so many people who I feel I have been blessed to meet an angel on assignment in this world. I know, Monique, I told you that earlier. You truly are like an angel that has been put on this globe to do amazing things. So to all of you out there, I'm going to introduce you to the beautiful, the talented, and you all probably know her from the main screen, Monique Coleman. Monique, thank you for sharing your heart and your soul today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
I don't even know where to begin. There's so much because it's like, you're just like incredible. And it's like, okay, where do we start? Right?
Oh my gosh.
But we met at the United Nations, right? At the Girl Up.
Yes, at the Girl Up Leadership Summit. But our hearts, I think, were obviously connected way before then. And even as you were saying, kind of, I've never been introduced as, in so many words, an earth angel. But it was really, I got so like piercingly silent because when I was a child, when I was in maybe third grade, I remember being introduced to Martin Luther King Jr. speeches. And I got so upset because I felt like he used all the good words that could be used.
Oh. All the good words are gone.
I was like, all the good words are gone. No one could ever make anybody feel the way that he's made me feel. And it was this interesting moment that it like connected to this deeper part of me where at that time I didn't have a real relationship with my father yet. And I remember thinking to myself, well, he must be my father and I must be an angel.
Oh.
And I believed that. And so when you were saying that, although now I'm 35, I was instantly back to being this 8-year-old little girl sitting in my twin bed in my little room in my little apartment in Columbia, South Carolina, believing that I was somehow connected to this other angel that had lived and that we were somehow the same. And so I just have to share that because that's really what was going on in my heart as you were saying that. And I think it's so important to sometimes allow, the bigness of that feeling and the kind of it's like a little bit overwhelming and swallowing, and something to, I think sometimes we as people just sort of dim our own light a little bit and say, oh, well, we want to express some sort of humility or humbleness, but really knowing that we are sort of this part of something so much bigger than ourselves, but that we have to acknowledge ourselves inside of it also is actually that's probably scarier than anything.
You know what's beautiful though is like I'm picturing, you remember the picture that popped up when we started our call? And I said, oh, you're so precious. And yet that's taking you right back to that time. And, let's just go there. I mean, there's so many amazing things that I'd love to share with everybody. But what I love the most about you is what's happening right now. You are truly the essence of authenticity. And it's mixed with such a beautiful element of grace. And you've gone on to do amazing things because you're very passionate. But what I'm loving is the dichotomy. You're giving back in a global way. So we can talk about all the distinctions you've gotten, and you're not wrapped up in all of that. Your focus, what I've learned about you, and I agree, our hearts go way back. It's like souls that have been connected from other lives or somewhere. I don't even know where. You have, you're giving in a place right now, Monique, that is globally. I mean, take me back to being a little girl. Let's go back there. And then I want to pull that to where you are today. That may have a lot to do why you're so passionate about Girl Up.
I think so. Well, for one, ever since when I was very small, my mother did tell me, you're going to be an asset. And I think that of all the things that we can give our children, that is the most valuable, is that belief that you can do absolutely anything and that you will do that you will fulfill your calling and your purpose. And ever since, as long as I can remember, I knew that I wanted to tell stories that mattered. I knew that I was given just an overabundance of feelings, that I just had so many feelings, and I didn't feel that I had a place necessarily to as an outlet for them. And the compassion that I had for people ran so deep. And I feel like that's really what got me into being an actress in the first place, was that I felt like I can hold your pain. I can hold your joy. I can hold your sorrow. I can, like, and I want to show it to you. I want to hold it and give it back to you, because it's not going to eat me up. I'm going to be okay. And it was sort of this weird thing that I had very, very, very young, where I would see things, and I would just connect to them in such a deep way. But really what I was also connecting to was people. And by the time I was, 12, I was teaching ballet to 3-year-olds. By the time I was 16, I was mentoring to 12-year-olds, and so forth. I feel that I just somehow always knew that there was going to be this like revolution of empowering young people. And because the opportunities didn't exist for me, I mean, I definitely had some really exceptional opportunities, but nothing like what this generation is exposed to
Yeah.
with, an organization like Girl Up. And for those who are listening who don't know what Girl Up is, it's a UN Foundation campaign that empowers girls all around the world to be healthy, safe, educated, and counted. And it basically connects girls in the United States with girls in developing countries, and it helps them to form real relationships across country lines, and to raise money for really important issues like, ending child marriage, or making sure that girls are counted, and ensuring that the 66 million girls, adolescent girls that are currently not in school, have access
Oh,
to education.
oh,
So these are very,
yeah.
very big things that, we can do now that we have the internet and we have all this. But when I was growing up, I didn't have that, but I had the feeling of that. And I think that speaks to a lot of what you and I talk about just the being a vibrational match to whatever it is that you believe, whether you can see it or not.
Hmm.
And so I feel like as an adult, I look back and I think, I, you know, I always wondered, like, how did High School Musical happen? What was its kind of purpose? And I believe that the purpose of High School Musical for me was actually not to advance my career as an actress, but it was to give me an endless gateway to this generation of young people, to be embedded in their minds as a part of their childhood, so that when I show up at their school, or when I come and I share with them that they matter, that their voices matter, that who they are has value, that it actually goes into their heart in a different way, because they feel like they already know me. And I think that that's just that was a part of the divine plan of it all, really.
Well, and what's beautiful is that's exactly what happened. Sitting there in a room full of hundreds of girls from around the world. And when you get up there, you're right. You actually can walk the talk, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that I just love, Monique, is that you come from such a place of servanthood. And I mean, let's face it, we're all human out there. We're all human beings, but many times ego can get in the way, and we make choices and choose the next big opportunity. I think sometimes, and I think I've been guilty of it many times over my many years, but is it for the right reasons, and is it aligned with our values?
Right.
And I think society doesn't help, right? Because we have all these things out there that we think we should be doing. But, would take me to, let's go right there to the High School Musical, because we know that that was a phenomenon. And it is, you can't be in a room with a bunch of girls that don't scream the minute you walk in or they hear about that, right? It's like,
Right.
right. And it does. But you see it, that was God's plan to help you help them have a voice. But there's a lot that people don't know. We see you on the big screen, and I remember you telling me about the tour in Australia, and your name was on the side of the bus, your
Yeah.
picture. But what was going on in the reality of Monique's world? That
So,
story is powerful.
yeah, the reality is that, yes, what people saw on the outside was this unbelievable, like, fast track, fast train to unbelievable success and fame. But what was really happening behind the scenes was so vastly different, particularly during the first movie. I actually came home from filming that movie to an eviction notice on my door.
Mm.
And even after the movie came out, so, we'd filmed the movie. It was this incredible experience. I come home. I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't kick me out of my place. And I go back to work. I go back to babysitting. I go back to waitressing. I go back to doing, all the little odds and ends jobs that I did to be able to live a life that was based on, what my dreams are. And then even after the film came out, I actually watched it with the children that I was babysitting for that weekend for $10 an hour.
Oh.
And it was this interesting thing where I just kept feeling like I was living two different experiences. So there was this experience that people saw, and then there was this experience that I was having, and it was this constant back and forth between which one of those is real, which person is real. And I remember we went to Australia, and I had to get my passport rushed because I hadn't been out of the country in 10 years. I mean, since
Yeah.
I'd been out of the country one time prior to this. And I was, there, and when I say it was the most unbelievable experience, I mean, we were staying at the Park Hyatt Sydney, which, if you've ever been there, you have a view of the Opera House from your window. There was the Sydney Harbor Bridge coming over the building. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I come home and I had my unemployment check in the mail because that's what I'd been living off of. So I just come back from, eating shrimp the size of my hand, from, staying at this unbelievable place, seeing my face on the side of a bus,
Yeah.
all these incredible things. And I had this check in the mail for, I think $900. And I looked at that check, and it was this just strange moment where I asked myself, is this what I'm worth? And I remember it distinctly because those were the words that I chose. Is this what I'm worth? And I needed it in the sense that, in the idea of us needing these pieces of paper in order to trade in for a place to stay or food to eat. So in a sense, I needed it, but I didn't want to accept or believe it that this was the extent of it. And I looked at that check and I thought to myself, if I cash this, if I deposit this, my rent is $750. If I deposit this, I can pay my rent and one other thing. So I can pay my rent and my car insurance or my cell phone or get groceries or. And I remember looking at that check and thinking to myself, I'd rather have nothing and lean on what I know and who I know God is and the bigness of not knowing. I'd rather not know than to receive this and believe that this is really what I'm worth. And I tore the check up and threw it in the garbage.
Oh, I love this.
I
Oh
did.
my
I threw it in the garbage. And this was days before my rent was due. And I just had this feeling in my heart where I said, I no longer want to accept just enough or not enough, because these experiences to me are indicative of where I'm going. And I don't want to receive this as where I actually am. I believe that this is where I am. And fast forward, long story short, Disney called maybe a week later. My rent was due. I mean, I'd already missed it and so forth. And we got our very first bonus check, and it was $50,000.
Oh.
And the executive at Disney actually sat me down and wanted to give it to me in person because she said she knew how much it would mean to me. And sometimes I don't tell that story because I don't ever want it to be about the money. I don't want people to go, oh, well, yeah, you're in a huge Disney movie. Of course, like that would have happened, because I don't think that that's what it's about. I think it's about the proportional blessing to the act of faith. And that's what it was for me. It was that the size of that check was equivalent to the size of my willingness to create space for God to bless me and not for me to just accept what the world was giving me. And that was the beginning of making decisions like that.
And I'm listening to you and I'm thinking there's such the difference right there. Your story exemplifies, Monique, this, to me, the highest level of a mindset and a spirit set of scarcity versus abundance and expectancy. Yes. You just lived it. We read about it, we hear about it, but I'm in awe right now. That is, but you did it, and you didn't know, you just trusted, and you knew enough. I want to go back to what the words were that you said to yourself. Is this all I'm worth?
Yeah.
Right? And you knew you were worth more than that, but you had to let go of the mental blocks and all the stuff that we have grown up with. I mean, there's grown adults listening to this that are probably still living with that's all I'm worth.
Yes.
And, I can only pray and hope that it's moments like this that they have a glimmer of hope that it's garbage in, garbage out, love in, love out, right? What are we putting in ourselves? Go ahead. You had a thought. You're going.
The thought was just simply that I think it really stems from believing that more than anything, you truly are loved unconditionally, and that whatever you name it or call it, the universe, God, source, that actually believing that source, God, the universe really wants to bless you. And so we don't sometimes make space because we feel that if we make space, we will be empty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But in fact, if you make space and you let go of whatever it is that you have that isn't serving you or isn't enough, you are actually giving the universe the room that it needs this to actually give you more than what it is that you could have wanted or expected. And that's a scary place to live, but it's over time and time and time and time again. That has been my experience.
And you continue to live it. Like there's an amazing thing that just happened to you recently because you're always saying and living in, what am I divinely put here to do?
Yes.
Right. And like, it's going to take us to what you're in the middle of right now. But I just have to add this because I think for people listening, and I think when we all get really clear and clean and pull back the layers of the onion and get honest with what's really going on in our worlds, things don't change till you're willing to change your mindset. And it's like listening to this story. Start as simple as, how many of us, have you ever done this, Monique? But I'm thinking about when I have to have a Holly check, I check myself again and go, get in check. Like I need to open up my space and I'll pray and say it's time to declutter psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically. But like even giving away, I'm a big proponent of giving away. I don't like to sell my stuff. I always feel like somebody can be so blessed. But isn't it interesting? Have you ever had this happen that if you literally take a couple hours on one day just to clean out and bag up all the things you're no longer using, and I touch things and I say, does this bring me joy?
Yes.
Right. And if it doesn't, it's time for someone else. But the minute I let go of thinking, if I get rid of those black pants and that red shirt, I'm never going to have that for my next gig, right? But it's time. Right. But when you give it away, it's just like what you just did. But even small scale for people listening, you go take 2 hours, start going through your stuff and realize what you really don't need, pack it up and give it to Goodwill. Give it to somebody that can be blessed. I'm not going to say do this with the intention of what you're going to receive, but when you truly do it to give, within days, something just comes into your life that you go,
always,
right?
Every time. Literally. Every single time. And it's that literal as it is spiritual. Yes, it happens on a in that sort of supernatural way, but it also literally happens. There are times where I look and I'm like, I know there's going to be a blessing at the bottom of that laundry basket.
It's not my husband's dirty clothes.
I'm like, I know there's a blessing because what it does is it shows us that our outside world is actually a reflection of our inside. And so if we are living with things that we do no longer need, then that means we have attachments to things that don't serve us. And so if we can let go of those attachments in the physical sense, then we're also cutting spiritual ties. I exercise a lot. And it's not so that I can have Michelle Obama arms, which I've been told that I do, and I'm very grateful for that.
You have great arms. Yes, you do.
But I exercise because it's an opportunity to move energy in a way that I want to move it in the world. And so as I work on being stronger, I'm literally exercising my strength. When I am allowing myself to, rest, I am saying I don't have to always be doing something. We spoke of this earlier that, I had a therapist once say, you are a human being, not a human doing. And that's one of the places when I'm on that yoga mat and I allow myself to rest, I'm saying I am a human being. We can practice these things by getting to the bottom of that laundry basket and saying, I'm not going to let there be stale energy that's sitting in the corner that's not being dealt with, where I am not using and moving through the things that are available to me. These are ways that it may seem frou-frou or kind of out there, but it really is, I think, incorporating a mindfulness in all things at all times and making that just a lifestyle more than a place that we visit for 20 minutes a day or once a week or whatever our spiritual practice is. But our lives and our things and our experiences can become that.
Well, you know what? I think you just nailed something, because this has to go with, there's a lot of buzz around work-life balance. And I'm not a fan of that vernacular. And I'll tell you, I don't know if we've even talked about this, but it's in line with work-life boundaries, because you need to have boundaries, because that creates the balance. But it's to what you just said. It's not just a 20-minute a day and then put it in a compartment or in a drawer and shove it away. Right. It's how are you choosing to live every day? Right. And that's not going to happen overnight, but it doesn't need to start either as a huge volcano. I think sometimes we look at adopting new thoughts or processes, or maybe people look at it as change, and we think of it as it's a volcano we have to attack, like this huge mountain. And actually, no, it's bite-sized pieces. It's just like the analogy of, if we continue, go to your closet and take an hour, whether it's tonight or take 30 minutes this weekend, start giving away things, go through the kitchen, do it in bite-sized pieces. And you're going to begin to experience a life-altering, magical feeling of when you give, you do open up, and then have your eyes open. I pray every day, Monique. I'm like, okay, God, today's full of miracles. Yes. And it's funny how when you pray to see miracles, you see miracles. You
do. Yes. You totally do. You actually just reminded me, I'm not sure if you've ever read Catherine Ponder's book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity.
Are you kidding? I have 3 versions of it because the first one's so beat up from all my highlights.
Oh my God, I love it. But the idea, one of the most mind-blowing things to me was that you have to give first before you receive. That you give, that you let go. The vacuum law of prosperity is that you let go of whatever it is that you're wanting in your life. That you let it go and then you get it. Like, not the other way around, that you wait and then you give. No, you give first. And for some reason, I'm not sure why this connected my thoughts, but I started thinking about where I was a couple of years ago, because after High School Musical, I kind of took this shift where I remember just feeling like I saw the heat of fame kind of starting to burn me. And I was like, wow, this is not the me that, if I continue on this path, this is not going to be a person that I like in the same way. And I'd rather take this time now to get right with myself and get reconnected to who I know I am and what I know my divine purpose is before moving forward. And so at a moment where I could have and should have, in some people's minds, continue to sort of climb the ladder of success, and then at some point detoured or, decided to give, I decided to actually let all of that go then. Ooh. And say, okay, I have all these things now and I want more of them, but before I'm going to sort of stuff more on top of something that is clearly has a crack in it. There's a crack in this foundation. And for me, the crack in my foundation was this excessive need for validation. The crack in my foundation was the fact that I was covering up my insecurities with success. I was covering up my lack of feelings of self-worth by needing to get the approval and the applause of people. And it was getting me further away from the very, very, very little girl that really did want to tell stories that mattered, that really did want to do good in the world. But what was happening was that all of the stuff that had started to kind of pollute me, those insecurities, those doubts, those fears, those traumas that we experience, were now coming in and muddying what this dream that I had was and turning it into a nightmare.
What did you do? How did you do this? I want to know that moment. This is powerful.
I moved, and I love that you use the word servitude, because people constantly talk about being selfless. And I find that to be a very dangerous that's a very dangerous language to use, because for me, it wasn't about selflessness. It was about serviceness. I think I made up a word.
Yeah, I love that word. Keep going.
It was about being of service, that I recognized that whatever we turn our attention to grows. So if I turn my attention to my fears, my doubts, my insecurities, everything that isn't working, all the things that could go wrong, all the things that I'm afraid of, then that's what I'm going to magnify and intensify. But if instead I turn my focus on what I do want, what I do desire, and so that's what I did. I literally put my attention on being of service. And I started a foundation,
Yes.
and a brand, and a little business called Gimme Mo. And the intention was to empower, inspire, and motivate young people through dynamic conversation about the real issues that they face, and connect them to experts and resources in order to fulfill whatever it is that their purpose is. And I was successful. I was a failure. I learned so many things, and it was interesting because it led to so much. So it was like the minute I surrendered and said, this thing that I have always believed myself to be. I don't know how many artists are out there listening, but I know that for me, if you asked me, what do you do? I'd say, oh, I'm an actress, but I feel like that's who I am, which is also very dangerous. That I didn't feel like being an actress is what I did. I felt like it was who I was. And without it, I was nothing. And so to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to surrender this one thing that has always been with me, that I love so dearly, so that it doesn't kill me. I'm going to surrender that for the sake of knowing that at this moment, I can use all that I've already achieved to be of service to others. And at that point, that's when the United Nations took notice, and I became the first ever United Nations Youth Champion for the Year of Youth, at which point I then initiated and funded a 6-month global tour with the money that I had made during High School Musical. I moved to New York. I got, really grounded. And then I had this moment where I woke up one day and I was so embarrassed, because after traveling to 24 countries, empowering thousands of young people, after sitting on panels at the United Nations and the State Department and USAID and all these very prestigious things that people would normally be like, whoa, amazing. I woke up one day and I just wanted to be on TV again.
Really? It was like that? You just woke up and said, okay, time to change.
I woke up one day, and you know what it was? It wasn't that drastic. It was more that I started to feel inauthentic in certain moments. And I started to recognize that I was being self-sacrificial. I was being selfless. I was no longer just being of service. Because to be of service, it means I take all that I am and I meet you there, and I help you to be all that you are. But I'm me. I still get to do me, be me, because ultimately, isn't that what we want to lead people to? We want people to have the freedom to be who they are, to have what they want, to live out their lives, to live out their dreams. So how am I helping to inspire the next generation of young people to do that if I've given up my dream in order to do that for them?
You couldn't have said it more beautiful, because we get so distorted in what I love your whole analogy around selfless, because it's really an oxymoron. If what we're trying to do, the greatest gift you can give this world, of which I see you doing, is to get so clear on who God put you here to be, to really get clear on what your gifts are. And we've all been given gifts. And that's the amazing gift, no pun intended, of being able to empower young people, both through your platform and through Girl Up. But honestly, Monique, it is about when you get really clear and you know who you are and what you've been here to do, everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Yeah. Your husband wins, your children win, your colleagues, your team, the people that are watching your shows and your movies, right? You are you're a messenger of your gifts, but I think we get that so right back to the Martyrville, like you just kind of talked about. Yeah. And then guess what? Everyone's miserable because you're really not happy. And really the energy you're sticking out and sending out to the world is, as I call some people, they're like emotional vampires. Yes. Right. And so I love that you woke up and realized, but you were used on a journey.
I was used. And then what was so gorgeous is that on that journey, I had let go of everything that didn't serve me. So I no longer had an agent. I no longer had a manager. You're going to love this story. I already know it. I no longer had a team. I was literally a free agent. I would walk around saying, God is my agent. And I
Really?
remember, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I remember being so fearful. How am I going to integrate this? I've now spent 2 years in a village, and traveling the world and doing all these things. And everyone around me is now connecting to me in this way. And the whole time it was authentic until it wasn't. And then once it wasn't, I pivoted because that's what I do. And I think that's a muscle that we have to start exercising, is that ability to say, I see that this is no longer serving me. This is no longer serving humanity. This is no longer what I want to do. I'm not going to let that go on for years. I'm just going to stop now. And I don't have to know what I'm going to do next, but I know that I'm going to stop doing this. And I remember thinking, it wasn't that I wanted to switch gears. It was that I wanted to expand. So it was realizing that, yes, people say stay in your lane, but you're not one lane, you're a track. There are plenty of lanes and they're all going in the same direction. And once I realized that, no, I never left the road. I never left the course. I just found out that the road was far wider than I had ever fathomed. And it included so many more things, but they all were moving in the same direction. So fast forward, I decided this is what I want to do. Didn't know how I was going to get back into it, but knew that all I needed to do was to continue to be authentic and do what was in my heart to do. It was the first year of the Girl Up Leadership Summit. I think it was April of 2012. I am speaking. My speech was entitled From High School Musical to the United Nations and Now.
Ooh.
So I'm talking about my experience as an actress. I'm talking about letting all of that go. I'm talking about my experiences with the United Nations. And I'm talking about now the fact that I want to integrate and blend all of those things in order to be a well-rounded person that fulfills my dreams and uses my platform to make the world better. Why come Bob Gersh of Gersh Agency
Oh, I'm going to love this story.
was in the audience with his wife, Linda, because his amazing daughter, Annie Gersh, was a Girl Up teen advisor. So here I was on this platform in the most authentic way, talking about the deepest passions of my heart. And this is to me the real, if I could impart anything on our audience today, it's that when you let go and you surrender, when you are blessed, it is more than what you would have been able to do if you would have taken the steps to get there. When I had left LA on my way out, when I was about to travel and all these things, the thing that really pushed me out was that everyone told me that I was too much. Everyone said, you really need to get focused. Yeah, I hear you talking about all this youth empowerment stuff, but like, what kind of roles do you want to play? I had so many doors close in my face of people saying, we can't represent you because we don't know how to support whatever it is that you're out there doing. Why don't you just go do it and then, maybe come back to us when you're a little bit clearer on what you want. And it wasn't that I wasn't clear on what I wanted. It was that they did not have the space to hold my wingspan. And now here I was. I would not have been able to just pick up the phone and call the Gersh Agency. I would not have been able to. I didn't have no entry point at this point, and years away from the industry, which people know that's suicide to just like leave the entertainment industry. There are 10, 15, 20 people that are exactly like you waiting to, in quotes, take your place, which they never could, because what's for you, no one can take away. But just that sort of visual or that idea. And when I turned my heart and attention to knowing that I wanted to use the gifts that I was given in order to empower and inspire young people, then I was met with the president of the agency, who then I wrote a letter to that night and explicitly explained, what my situation was. And he set up a meeting the following week with one of the talent agencies at the Gersh Agency. I've been there ever since. Oh. And now they're a bi-coastal agency. So when I woke up and decided, you know what, I think my New York days are done. It's time to move back to Hollywood. I now have an agent on the East Coast, the West Coast, and I have an entire team of people that are behind me that are that are able to help me fulfill all of my dreams, but who are connected to my heart's purpose. And that's the most important thing, is that they know my heart. So when I say, oh, I can't come to that because I need to go volunteer with this girls organization, or I can't do this, or that's not in integrity with the fullness of what it is that I'm trying to create for the world, they understand it.
You know what's amazing is that go back to that moment on that platform, on that stage in the Leadership Summit, when you said, I'm going all out. You let go of fear. You were so authentic and said, here's where I was, here's where I went, and here's where I am now. No idea, like you just said, when you let go and surrender, the magnitude of the blessings that are around the corner.
Ooh, yes.
I mean, girlfriend, to think what happened in that moment. But had you not been honest, clear, and authentic, and it goes back to that point you just made, you know what? You are enough. We are enough.
Yes.
And yet we're always feeling like we need to be something different.
Right.
But really who we were created to be is beyond. It's incredible, but we keep shoving that stuff down, I guess, and thinking we have to fill up spaces in us with all the stuff the world thinks we should do. And you've continued to live in a place, and I'm going to keep using this word because the minute we got time together, and it was like we've known each other for years, and it does go way back. It's like there is, it's truly humility and servanthood. You are a messenger. When I think about the word actress, what's funny now just knowing you so well, it's like, you're right, that's the label, but I look at you as a messenger using the stories of acting.
Ooh.
That's what you are.
Ooh, I'm going to journal about that. I love that.
Well, I think I was just thinking after listening, I'm just listening to you right now. I'm like, okay, two things that I want everybody to know. I'm going to hold Monique to this because I think someday there's going to be an amazing book that's going to come out because you have so much wisdom. You have so much, the spirit's just flowing through you and the wisdom. It's like, I can't take enough notes. And I know everybody listening is going to be capturing notes after notes. So, girlfriend, just keep doing what you're doing. And I don't even want this to end. And I know I'm going to be like, I don't even care. I just want to know two things. I look at me, I'm like, we're going to keep going for hours. If you guys want to listen, go for it. I won't turn it off. Tell us, like, what I'd love to know. Two things. I want to know a little bit more about your platform. Is it still in existence? You said it was very successful and you had a failure, but is that still something that people can find out more about, that your passion around that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and no. The yes is that it was too big to try to do in a time frame that I can calculate. And so in that sense, it does exist. We're very vibrant on social media and so forth. But again, as with everything, I've surrendered it. I've surrendered the form that it takes. I've surrendered the how. So I know what it is and I know what the vision is, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And I also recognize that we cannot do anything alone. And so part of, something I also want to share is that sometimes we think things aren't working out or that they're not happening and that it's somehow because of us. Sometimes it is, maybe many times, but often it actually has to do with the fact that we are a little army of people that need one another in order to be able to fulfill our divine purpose. And sometimes someone else is where they are on their journey, and when and where you're supposed to intersect with them and how you're supposed to intersect with them is a missing piece in why something is or isn't happening at that time. And so the idea of Gimme Mo and creating this platform for young people to be able to feel empowered and connected to the resources that they need to be able to be more of who I know and believe they already are, that is absolutely still my mission, always will be. The how, the where to find it, the website, that doesn't exist right now.
Okay.
But the spirit it's still there for sure.
And I love that. And you know what? It just goes, all of this is such a testimony to how you choose to live. And every step and choice you make is let it go, surrender, and then be ready for what's next.
Yes.
And that's what's so beautiful is it's like everything, even this, it's a passion, it's there. And when it's time to manifest, it will.
Yes.
And it will all happen. So if people want, there's so much wisdom you've shared. So I always like to wrap up. I feel like, the series is about the celebration of you. And Monique, so this has been on my heart for a long time. I just get to hear amazing stories from incredible people. And I mean incredible people that are just living, right down the street from us, that we never get to hear their stories, to people like you, right, that are out there and we see your name. But I think what's beautiful is every human being has a story. And in their story, when we're willing to share, we give hope, we give inspiration. There could be one person listening thinking, I needed this. This was the answer to the prayer I've been praying, just to get that glimmer of hope. And so when I think about, I share with us currently right now, I know we get you right now and you're in the middle of filming. And so you're going right back to the set, whether this afternoon or tomorrow, but you're in something really fun. You're enjoying.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I'm in an independent film actually called Little Star. And it stars this lovely actress, Annalie Tipton, and I play her very grounded assistant. And it's a great role. And it's, I feel like in the last 9 months, I just have really taken a big shift because when I came back into acting from taking the time off, there was a gaping hole of insecurity and self-doubt. Gaping hole. And I went on, I believe, 30 or more auditions in 2014 before I ever booked a role.
Really?
Not even before I booked a role, before I even received a callback for a role. And for those who don't know how the acting industry works, you go to an audition where you basically try out for the part with hundreds of other people potentially, and then they narrow it down to a much smaller group. Then those people get what's called callback, and you meet the producer, the directors, and so forth. And then depending on the extent of the role, there might be one other step where you would test for the role, and it would be down to maybe 2 or 3 people. So this is the process. So I didn't even make it past the first step on about 30 different occasions. And when I say that was devastating and heartbreaking and just so taxing on my emotions and my feeling of worthiness, it was when I realized that I needed to extract my feeling of worthiness from the results that I was getting from my efforts, that everything shifted. When I realized that I needed to do this because of the joy that I had in my heart and the love that I have for it, not for the validation or the results that I was going to get from it, that was the moment that everything shifted.
Isn't it amazing? Once again, you can go right back to seeing a total epiphany when you went back to the values and why you're doing it. It's getting the why. I mean, I think, and we can talk about that for hours, but we all need our why, but it has to be aligned with who you are. And I firmly believe it has to be aligned with our values of how we choose to be in this world. So well, I am beyond excited. It's like, I don't want to end. And I'm like, I just can't even get over, like, to celebrate you today has been, to me, beyond that. It's a celebration of what life can be. And I think you have given so much, Monique, and you give us hope, and you come with such that essence. The spirit is just, and if you get to be around Monique, you'll see she just exudes joy. Aww. So, and it is I just love you. That's all I'm going to say. I love you
too.
I love you. And if people want to know more, or if they have questions, if you touch their heart, I don't want you to be overwhelmed. So how would it be best for people to reach out to you? Do you want them to come to me first, or would you like them to come to a certain place to reach you?
Sure. I mean, if someone wanted to reach out like in a personal way, absolutely, they can definitely get in touch with you. But then I'm also very active on social media as well. I am on Instagram, just _ Monique Coleman. I do check my direct messages. And then on Facebook, my Facebook page is at official Monique Coleman.
Oh, I love that. The official Monique Coleman.
And I think that's just because somebody took my name.
Hey, I think that happens to a lot of us. We're like, wait, why do I have to throw another letter in there?
Exactly. Right? Wait, why does this have an underscore? But
it does.
That's what we do.
Well, and again, when people get to listen to this, please go to iTunes and leave a comment, on Monique's Facebook, leave a comment on my website. I mean, we love to hear how you were inspired, and any nugget of hope that this just gave you a new ray of sunshine. And I can't wait to talk to you again. And Monique, by the way, when we hang up, I'm inviting you to a very special event that I'm having. I decided you have to be there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. And I can't wait. Thank you, my love. Thank you for sharing you and your heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're incredible. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.